The presence of online gambling in video games is a phenomenon that has raised many debates and ethical questions. Many individuals and groups warn against including gambling functions within video games by citing many potential issues and risks that can result from it. Regardless, there are countless video games on the market that include the ability to gamble, even if it is not necessarily called gambling according to the game itself. Is gambling in video games real gambling? The answer to this question is complex. Although you may not be gambling for money, many video games include the option to spend real money or in-game currency for the chance to win rare or exclusive items in the game. Gambling in video games refers to an activity in a game that involves risking something of value in the hope of winning something of greater value. This can be interpreted differently by different people and state and local laws, so finding a clear answer can be tricky, especially if players are spending in-game currency rather than real money. Regardless of its legal classification, gambling-like interactions in video games can have the same effects and risks of real-world gambling due to striking similarities between the two. These interactions are also known as loot boxes, which is a digital container of randomized rewards that alter the game in some way, and can often be purchased for real money or in-game currency, which can be bought with real money. One article states, our analysis of the characteristics of loot boxes in 22 games rated by the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, or the ESRB, as appropriate for audiences 17 years old or younger, reveals that loot boxes have important structural and psychological similarities with gambling. One risk brought by gambling in video games includes psychological and behavioral impacts, which can result in addiction and compulsive behavior, with the potential to grow into real-world gambling. One article states, a positive relationship was found between risky loot box buying and depression, anxiety, stress, and impulsivity. Loot box buying shares similar mental health risk factors with other behavioral addictions. These potential behavioral impacts on players that video game gambling brings are a great risk for not only consumers, but also development studios and marketers. Another risk includes ethical issues, such as underage players who may be targeted by and exposed to these games, and also lack of transparency in the gambling mechanics. There are many games made specifically for younger audiences which feature gambling-like interactions. This is a concern because not only is gambling illegal for minors, but it is also harmful because younger-aged players often lack the mental development necessary to completely comprehend the ramifications and implications of gambling. Often, children exposed to gambling-like interactions within games may develop gambling habits and addictions as adults. Dr. Kai Sakata, the acting executive manager of the Australian Gambling Research Centre, says the longitudinal study of Australian children, which followed participants over 20 years, showed a causal link between playing simulated gambling games and being more likely to spend real money gambling when they turned 18. The ethical and legal risks and implications of this are a challenge that developers and marketers within the industry must face when marketing these types of games. One current event that has recently taken place is the developer of the game Genshin Impact getting sued by the U.S. Federal Trade Commission over infractions surrounding in-game loot boxes. One article, which was published in January 2025, states, Genshin Impact publisher Cognosphere is settling a United States Federal Trade Commission lawsuit over selling loot boxes to players under the age of 16. It'll pay a $20 million fine for allegedly violating U.S. children's privacy laws and deceiving children and other users about the real costs of in-game transactions and odds of obtaining real prizes. The company will also stop selling loot boxes to people under the age of 16 without parental consent. This is a great example of how improper and inadequate management and handling of gambling within video games can result in significant consequences for game developers. This instance is one of many times throughout recent history where developers have faced repercussions for violating privacy and gambling laws. The risks mentioned previously have created significant challenges for marketers who are tasked with marketing games which feature gambling. Marketers should ensure that their marketing practices are transparent to the consumer and adhere to laws and regulations set forth by local, state, and federal governments. One extremely important aspect of marketing is the 4 C's, which is the structure that defines the whole of the entertainment industry. The 4 C's are content, conduit, consumption, and convergence. Marketers can lessen the impact of the issues mentioned previously by using these four principles. Content refers to the actual material that is being marketed. In the case of a game, it would be the game itself. One method of content that can be used by marketers is ensuring the gambling mechanics within the game are fair and transparent. By highlighting the real odds and chances of receiving the items from loot boxes, consumers can make more informed decisions. Marketers should let consumers know that there are risks and potential negative behavioral and psychological effects that can result from participating in the gambling interactions within the game. This allows gamers to understand what they are getting into before they develop addictive and compulsive behaviors. Conduit is the method by which the material gets to the consumer. This can include the internet, television, arcades, and much more. Marketers can mitigate the risks of gambling for minors by requiring age verification before players can use gambling features within the game. This can include requiring a photo ID or a driver's license to prove one's age. By restricting access to gambling features to underage players, marketers can help ensure that their game is compliant with laws and regulations pertaining to children's privacy and safety. Once players have verified their age, their account or device can be allowed to access the previously locked features within the game. Marketers can work with platforms such as Google Play, Apple, and Amazon to help set parental controls and age restrictions. Marketers can also create disclaimers on these platforms that highlight potentially addictive content within the game. Another method for marketers is only allowing their ads to be shown to adult users rather than exposing younger audiences to the advertisements. Consumption is the portal the consumer uses to access the material. This can include technology such as TV, smartphone, tablet, and computer, but also includes platforms such as streaming services and social media. Games can limit the frequency and the amount of real money spent within the game to ensure that players' spending habits are not getting out of control. Data can be used to identify risky spending behavior and create limits. Marketers can limit the amount of microtransactions within their games to avoid potential predatory practices. Another consumption-related method marketers can use is social media. Marketers can create videos or posts on social media which can raise awareness of the risks of gambling for both adults and minors within their game. This can also give parents the information they need to fully understand what risks their child may be subject to while playing the game. Lastly, convergence refers to integrating multiple marketing strategies, technology, and platforms. Often in many games, the separation between gameplay and gambling is vague, with little distinction between them. Marketers can combat this by ensuring that the ability to progress in the game is not heavily reliant on in-game purchases of loot boxes or other gambling-like interactions. By offering enough free options for players, consumers will not be forced to spend money to play a game which is advertised as free. Also, marketers can create marketing campaigns that highlight other aspects of the game, like the gameplay or story, rather than just gambling mechanics. If a game is available on multiple platforms, such as PC, mobile, and gaming consoles, marketers can make spending limits and data merge across all platforms and devices so that players cannot avoid the limitations by switching devices. Overall, the risk from gambling in video games is an important issue that marketers must continue to be aware of when marketing such games. By aiming for transparent and fair marketing practices, marketers can work to keep consumer safety in mind by giving them the tools they need to make informed decisions. Marketers should also be aware of the substantial risks and harm of exposing children to gambling.